Evolution and History of Southern Black Schools. Sean Combs, Langston Hughes, Alice Walker, 2 Chainz, Martin Luther King Jr., Michael Clark Duncan, Oprah Winfrey, Rick Ross, and Samuel L. Jackson. What do all these famous people have in common? They all graduated from historical black colleges and universities. The evolution of Southern black schools is one deeply rooted in the perseverance and struggles of the generations before them. Although it took time to overcome obstacles, historically black colleges and universities came to be one of the greatest resources for minority individuals.
How it all began. Dating back as early as slavery, the limitations placed on African American education were used as a control mechanism to prevent slaves from rebelling. Ironically, this only sparked more interest in African Americans, and their desire to become more educated grew immensely. During this time period, 2 very important leaders emerged, Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Booker T. Washington, a free slave from Virginia, who became chief black editor during the late 19th and early 2000th century. He also had a major influence on Southern race relations and was a dominant figure in black public affairs over the course of his life. W.E.B. Du Bois was an American sociologist, historian, civil rights activist, Pan-Africanist author, and editor. Unlike Washington, Du Bois was raised in Massachusetts in a relatively tolerant and integrated community.
In higher education, several black institutions were formed under the backings of the Freedmen's Bureau and the American Missionary Association to help create black ministers and provide Christian education for the allegedly troubled black race. At the same rate, certain black institutions segregated schools that largely depended on white philanthropy to exist, focused on industrial education. Unfortunately, these institutions were in most cases academically inferior to white institutions.
While some universities would require federal urging to open their enrollment to black students, these were primarily larger state universities. Many private colleges never explicitly forbade blacks, but practiced a de facto segregation that happens by fact rather than by legal requirement. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court unanimously declared segregation in schools unconstitutional in the case of Brown v. Board of Education. Oliver Brown sued the school system in Topeka, Kansas, after they declared that the school that his daughter was attending is equal to the one that the white students were attending. After much debate, segregation was put to an end.
Education in the 1960s. The 1960s was a time of confusion and social unrest for the black community. During this time, more blacks were beginning to attend predominantly white universities, and although these institutions provided them with great opportunities, the hostile environment proved to be counterproductive to their success. It has been said that the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. prompted not only a large increase in campus activity, but also a growth in administrative response to the demands of African American students. These demands typically consisted of an increased representation on campus, black faculty members, black students, and establishing black studies programs.
Following the Civil War, African American education blossomed. Black ministers and white philanthropists worked together and established schools across the South to educate freed slaves. These schools, more than 100 are still open today, became known as historically black colleges and universities, also known as HBCUs. A few examples include Spelman College and Morehouse College, located in Georgia, and Howard University, located in Washington, D.C. And although there is a lot of misconceptions regarding Southern Black schools, it is important to note that these schools are inclusive to all races, cultures, and historical backgrounds.